I'm 27, I live in the UK, and I've been a qualified nurse since 2018. I specialise in stroke and stroke rehabilitation, but I also work in a private nursing home from time to time to earn extra money. About 6 months ago, a new resident moved into the home. We can call her Jenny, for palliative care for her terminal bowel cancer. Whilst with us, Jenny found out that not only had her bowel cancer spread to her liver and lungs, but she also had brain metastasis and only had a few months left to live. After about 2 months with us, she started really freaking out when we would help her back to her room in the evening and get her comfortable for the night. She used to shout at us to be careful of the children or don't fall in the river.
Good advice, to be fair.
Isn't it? When asked what she was talking about, she explained to us she could see a river flowing through her room and lots of children playing in it. She wasn't necessarily scared of the children, she just didn't want us to stand on them and hurt them. The doctors and nurses all believed that she was hallucinating due to the brain metastases and the amount of opioid medication she was on. And we all made sure we didn't stand where she was pointing, so we didn't stand on the children she could see. A couple of months ago, Jenny passed away peacefully, and I hadn't thought about the children or the river since. 2 weeks ago, a new resident moved into Jenny's old room. We'll call her Sarah. I'd like to point out that Sarah didn't live here when Jenny was here. They've never met, and nobody would ever have mentioned Jenny to Sarah. Sarah's first week with us passed and she was settling in well until the other night when we tried to take her back to her room for the night and she refused. She said she was not ever going back into that room because she couldn't sleep due to all the noise and she didn't like how close they all got.
Oh, gross.
We asked her what she meant as the home was very quiet at night. She said, Jenny. I froze. I again asked her what she meant. She said, Jenny and the children make so much noise when they're playing and it keeps me up all night. I've always been a skeptic, but I can't see any other logical explanation for this. I've asked the other staff and nobody has mentioned Jenny or the children in the river to Sarah. Somebody please tell me there's an other explanation to this. What the fuck is going on?
A 15-year-old girl named Donna lived with her father in a small house in the suburbs. Ever since her mother died, Donna had depended on her father for everything. They had a wonderful relationship and loved each other very, very much. One morning, Donna's father was leaving on a business trip. As they ate breakfast together, he told her that he'd be home very late that night. With that, he kissed her on the forehead, grabbed his briefcase and walked out of the front door. Later that day, when Donna came home from school, she did some homework and watched some TV. By midnight, her father had still not returned, so she decided to go to bed. That night, she had a dream. She found herself standing at the edge of a busy highway. Cars and trucks whizzed by at an alarming rate. She looked across the highway and saw a familiar figure standing on the other side. It was her father. His hands were cupped around his mouth, and he seemed to be shouting something to her, but she couldn't make out what he was saying. As the traffic whizzed by, she strained to hear. Her father's eyes were sad. He seemed to be desperately trying to communicate something. Don't open the door. Suddenly, Donna was awoken from the dream by a strange tapping noise. Then somebody began to ring the doorbell downstairs. She scrambled out of bed and put on her slippers. Then, dressed only in her nightgown, she ran downstairs and went to the front door. Looking through the peephole, she saw her father's face outside. He was staring right at her. The doorbell kept ringing insistently. "Okay, hold on, I'm coming," she shouted. She pulled back the deadbolt and was about to unlatch the door when she stopped. She looked through the peephole at her father again. Something about his expression didn't look quite right. His eyes were wide open and he looked terrified. She slid the deadbolt back into place. "Dad?" she yelled through the door. "Did you forget your keys?" "Dad, answer me. Dad, please, I need you to answer me. Is there someone else out there with you? Why won't you answer me? I'm not opening the door until you say something." The doorbell kept ringing and ringing, but for some reason, her father refused to answer her desperate cries. For the rest of the night, the frightened girl cowered in the corner of the hallway, helplessly listening to the ceaseless ringing of the doorbell. It seemed to go on for hours, but eventually she fell into an uneasy sleep. At dawn, she woke up and realised that everything was quiet. She crept over to the door and looked through the peephole again. Her father was still standing there, staring at her. She cautiously opened the door and was confronted with a sight that filled her with unimaginable horror. Her father's severed head was hanging from a nail above the door. There was a note attached to the doorbell, and crude, scrawled handwriting. It read, "Clever girl."
he said, my daughter was asleep. My wife and I both worked second shift. And he's like, so we're sitting down, we're watching television, I'm drinking a beer, catching up on life and our days. And he said, I look out the window, and there is that 15-year-old girl staring at my wife and I. And he said, Nathaniel, he said, I didn't know what to think, first of all. It's not a man. It's a girl. Why am I freaking out? I mean, it's weird. It is weird. He said, he's like, it's a 15-year-old girl. He said, I called the cops and said, you know what? She's kind of strange. I don't know what's going on, but she's looking at us at a really weird time in the morning. And so the police got there. She was already disappeared. She's gone. He said, we didn't see her for another few months. And he said, but during this time period, our daughter kept getting further and further away from us. And he said the further she got from the family, that the manifestation, the paranormal activity, would go through the roof. And so to listen to the things they experienced, shadow figures, orbs, door handles shaking, something that was walking on the wooden floors and creaking them at nighttime. And he said it just every day was just something different. And there was just this malevolent presence that just soaked the house. It would overshadow the house. You feel when you wake up, you go to bed with it. And he said, we went to a local church, we talked to the minister about it and everything, and he gave us some advice. He said, but we really didn't know what to do. We're trying to rehabilitate our daughter, trying to get closer to her. Meanwhile, there seems to be some invasive species just trying to hurt us or I don't know, give us nightmares. He did not know what to do. So one night, he said they were back on the couch after work, relaxing. And the daughter goes to the door. So she opens the front door, and before her parents could even realize what is happening, in walks the 15-year-old. A pair of stub-nosed scissors in one hand and a knife in the other.